Good evening and welcome to NTD News. I'm Evelyn Lee. Here are today's top stories. A CDC panel has voted on another recommendation for COVID-19 vaccines. This one could make the federal agency recommend mRNA vaccines over J&J's one-shot product. Texas is the latest state not to comply with the Pentagon's vaccine mandate. The governor tells the Pentagon that he won't enforce the mandate for National Guard members. Biden's Build Back Better bill is on hold for the holidays. And with growing skepticism from swing vote Senator Joe Manchin, Senator Lindsey Graham said today he thinks that the bill is, quote, dead forever. Dozens of states this year have changed how they conduct mail-in voting. Which states tightened mail-in ballot rules and which states relaxed them? In the Ghislaine Maxwell sex abuse trial, the prosecution rested its case much earlier than expected. Now it's the defense's turn to call its witnesses to the stand. NTD was at the courthouse. The U.S. is wielding a new wave of sanctions against China, but this time it's targeting something different: biotech and brain control weapons. Experts at the CDC publicly discussed the fate of the J&J vaccine. This is because it is associated with a deadly but rare adverse reaction. Banning the drug was on the table, but they settled on a preferential recommendation. NTD's Mrna tells us what that means.
With a unanimous vote, these experts agree to back a recommendation about COVID-19 vaccines. This recommendation would have the CDC formally state that mRNA vaccines are preferred over the J&J vaccine for people ages 18 and up. This is because J&J's product is associated with a deadly adverse reaction called thrombosis with thrombocytopenia, TTS for short. A total of 54 people in the U.S. were reported to suffer from TTS this year between March and late August. A CDC official said 9 of them died. One of the panelists, Dr. Pablo Sanchez, expressed his concerns before voting.
I just cannot recommend a vaccine that it's associated with a condition that may lead to death.
Another member says informed patients may want the J&J vaccine anyway.
I would not recommend a Janssen vaccine to my family members. On the other hand, I think we do have to recognize that different people make different choices, and if they are appropriately informed, I don't think we should remove that option from them.
The CDC director has to approve the panel's recommendation before officially taking a stance that prefers mRNA vaccines over the J&J vaccine. Miguel Moreno, NTD News.
Texas National Guard members won't be required to get the COVID-19 vaccine. Texas Governor Greg Abbott says he's not enforcing the Pentagon's vaccine mandate for service members. The governor wrote in a letter to Defense Secretary Lloyd Austin, "As governor of Texas, I am the commander-in-chief of this state's militia. The state of Texas will not enforce this latest COVID-19 vaccine mandate against its guardsmen." Abbott has ordered the Adjutant General of Texas not to punish any guardsmen if they don't get the vaccine. The Texas governor also promises to use every legal tool to fight this mandate. The Pentagon claims that they have the power to order any military member to get a vaccine, including National Guard members. And they've threatened to cut off funding for National Guard members who don't comply. As of today, more than 97% of the U.S. military's active duty force is vaccinated. And Biden's Build Back Better bill is on hold for now, but today Senator Lindsey Graham says he thinks that the bill is dead forever. Graham told NTD why he thinks it's an effort to dramatically reshape America.
Debate on the Build Back Better bill is on hold for the holidays. Today, Senator Durbin indicated that it's off the table until the new year. This social welfare and climate spending bill implements a slew of new federal programs, from government-run pre-K centers to help with rental assistance to clean energy tax credits and more. Many conservatives have called this a march towards socialism. Today, I asked Senator Graham what he sees as some of the most concerning policies here. Here's what he told us.
We believe these programs are going to do more harm than good, grow the government, march us toward socialism. If you have a child in a religious daycare setting, the child care component of this bill is not going to be available to these organizations because of the regulations.
An economist at the Heritage Foundation tells us the tax hikes proposed in the bill are the biggest since the 1960s. It would make America's tax rates among the highest in the world.
And the 37 countries in the OECD, which are the biggest industrialized countries in the world, would make our business taxes higher than communist China. And if you live in a high tax area like New York City, well, that means that about 60% of your income as an individual could be shuttled off to the federal government. And
Graham this week asked the CBO to score the bill, anticipating that these programs would be extended for 10 years instead of just a few years as stated in the bill.
And the reason Jason and I did that is that when you take the lie off the table that these programs go away, it doubles in cost.
But Democrats have pushed back on this CBO score.
Senator Graham is making up numbers.
First of all, what you're talking about here is a fake CBO score that is not based on the actual bill that anybody is voting on.
Graham says some parts of the bill could gain bipartisan support if they were handled on a case-by-case basis, instead of lumped all together in a massive bill.
Been interested in helping working people with child care expenses, but not $1.6 trillion over 10 years, not the way they wrote it.
On the issue of tax credits for buying electric cars, Graham agrees with the need for them, but he says the bill only gives subsidies to cars bought from union companies, which is unfair for private car makers.
In this bill alone, there's over $300 billion to push people not to work.
He pointed to the child tax credit because in the new proposal, parents don't have to prove they're working to receive the benefits. And with the Senate headed out of session for the holidays, debate on this bill will start bubbling up again in 2022. Reporting in Washington, D.C., Melina Weisskopf, NTD News.
House Speaker Nancy Pelosi says members of Congress should not be banned from trading individual stocks. This comes after a Business Insider report claims that dozens of congressional members have violated laws against insider trading, mostly because they didn't report their trades on time. In light of the report, a reporter asked Pelosi Wednesday whether members of Congress should be barred from stock trades. She said no, because lawmakers should be allowed to take part in the marketplace freely.
This is a free market and people, we are a free market economy. They should be able to participate in that.
A 2012 law requires federal lawmakers to report trades made by themselves, their spouse, or their dependent children, and they have to do it in a timely manner. The Business Insider report alleges 49 members in both chambers and both parties had violated these laws. Speaker Pelosi's name did not appear in the report, but she and her husband have made millions from stock trading since she has been in office. Pelosi's spokesperson denies any allegations of insider trading. A Democrat has quit the race for next year's North Carolina Senate nomination. State Senator Jeff Jackson is now endorsing his fellow Democrat, former North Carolina Chief Justice Cheri Beasley.
We all saw what happened with the election in Virginia last month. We are headed into a tough one. Pat McCrory and Ted Budd are gearing up to spend millions of dollars attacking each other in order to be the Republican nominee. If we're going to flip this seat, we can't do that. A costly and divisive primary will sink this whole thing.
Jackson acknowledges that Beasley has been consistently leading in the polls, and he says Democrats need to unite behind the former Chief Justice. Besides Beasley, 2 other Democrats are running for the nomination, and the Republican primary is intensifying. 6 candidates have announced they are running. The competition is mainly among Congressman Ted Budd, former Congressman Mark Walker, and former North Carolina Governor Pat McCrory. Budd has former President Donald Trump's endorsement. Primaries are slated for May 17th next year. Following the 2020 elections, more than half the states in the U.S. have changed their rules for mail-in ballots. While some states tightened regulations over mail-in ballots, other states adopted automatic vote by mail. NTD's Ellison Lee brings us more on how the rules have changed on the national level.
According to Voting Rights Lab, at least 36 states this year passed laws that in some way deal with mail-in voting. 14 of them tightened rules for mail-in ballots. Arizona, Arkansas, Florida, Georgia, Idaho, Indiana, Iowa, Kansas, Kentucky, Montana, New Hampshire, North Dakota, Texas, and Washington State. Of those, Arizona, Arkansas, Florida, Georgia, Iowa, and Texas expressively banned their election officials from sending out mail-in ballots, or sometimes even mail-in ballot applications, to voters who have not requested them. On the other hand, 15 states relaxed rules for mail-in ballots. They are California, Colorado, Connecticut, Hawaii, Illinois, Maine, Maryland, Massachusetts, Minnesota, Nevada, New Jersey, New York, Oregon, Vermont, and Virginia. Among those, California, Nevada, and Vermont became universal vote-by-mail states. That means election officials automatically send out mail-in ballots to every registered voter in every election. 5 other states are already doing this: Colorado, Hawaii, Oregon, Utah, and Washington State. In California and Oregon, mail-in ballots are now accepted up to 7 days after Election Day, even if they're missing a postmark. In Nevada, these ballots are still accepted up to 3 days after Election Day. Meanwhile, 9 other states also changed their rules for mail-in ballots, but Voting Rights Lab says they did so in ways that did not make a clear difference in their level of strictness. These states are Alabama, Louisiana, Oklahoma, South Dakota, Tennessee, Utah, West Virginia, Wisconsin, and Wyoming. Allison Lee, NTD News.
In the sex abuse trial of Ghislaine Maxwell, the defense today brought its first witness to the stand. She's a former office worker for Jeffrey Epstein. NTD's Jason Perry was at the courthouse.
Kimberly Espinosa was an office worker for Jeffrey Epstein for about 6 years, from 1996 until 2002. She said she never witnessed Maxwell or Epstein engaged in any misbehavior. After the defense finished their questioning, the prosecution attempted to make Espinosa's claims irrelevant by asking her if she ever worked at any of Epstein's homes. Espinosa said she had not. The defense brought memory expert Elizabeth Loftus to the stand. She testified that a person's memory of a traumatic event will likely stay, but the details of that memory can be distorted by post-event information, including media reports. 4 women have already testified during the prosecution's case that they were sexually abused by Maxwell and Epstein when they were teenagers. Maxwell's attorneys have attempted to discredit their accounts by highlighting inconsistencies. The defense case can last only 2 days, and it's yet to be determined if Maxwell would take the stand in her own defense, which would be a rare move in any defense. Jason Perry, NTD News, New York.
And President Biden awarded the Medal of Honor to 3 Army soldiers today. It's the highest and most prestigious military recognition for valor. NTD's Chen Wu has more.
Ladies and gentlemen, the President of the United States.
At a ceremony Thursday, the prestigious award was given to the late Sergeant First Class Alwyn Cash, the late Sergeant First Class Christopher Celez, and Master Sergeant Earl Plumley. President Biden honored the sacrifices these soldiers made for our country and said they went above and beyond the call of duty during the wars in Afghanistan and Iraq. In 2005, Cash rescued his fellow soldiers from a burning vehicle during an operation in Iraq, even though he was severely injured.
So he pushed his own pain aside to return to the burning vehicle and pulled 4 soldiers free.
In 2018, Celez protected a medical evacuation helicopter in Afghanistan until he was killed.
He put himself directly between the cockpit and the enemy, ensuring the aircraft could depart and sustaining what would prove to be a mortal wound. He knew he was hit, but he waved for the aircrew to depart without him. In the face of extreme danger, he placed the safety of his team and his crew above his own.
In 2013, Plumley fought off an attack by suicide bombers on his base in Afghanistan.
The staff sergeant exited the vehicle and used his own body to shield the driver.
Plumley was the only living recipient at Thursday's ceremony, which marked the first time Biden awarded the Medal of Honor for actions in Iraq and Afghanistan. Chen Wu, NTD News.
As several states recover from this past weekend's record-breaking tornadoes, now the Midwest is suffering from devastating weather. NTD's Miguel Moreno brings us an update.
Severe storms, battering hurricane-force winds, and mammoth clouds of dust swallow parts of the Midwest.
Okay, now this is a trip.
Just this weekend, record-breaking tornadoes left parts of Kentucky in tatters. Now Midwesterners are hit by storms, weaker but still ferocious. Since Wednesday, at least 5 people have died in this weather. Roughly 400,000 homes and businesses suffer from power outages in Michigan, Wisconsin, and other states. Michigan has taken the brunt of it, reporting over 50% of those outages. In Nebraska, this semi-truck couldn't fight the wind any longer. A state trooper's dash cam captured the moment this 18-wheeler was blown onto its side. The Nebraska State Patrol says the driver was wearing a seatbelt and is injury-free. On Wednesday, parts of the Midwest experienced unusually warm temperatures, reaching up to 70 degrees Fahrenheit. Yale meteorologist Jeff Masters says this was due in part to record-high ocean temperatures in the Gulf of Mexico, which he attributes to global warming. Miguel Moreno, NTD News.
The 12 remaining missionaries from a group kidnapped in Haiti are now free. They're part of a group of 17 from Ohio-based Christian Aid Ministries. They were kidnapped last October after visiting an orphanage. 5 of the hostages were released in recent weeks. Christian Aid Ministries posted a statement on their website today. Join us in praising God that all 17 of our loved ones are now safe. Thank you for your fervent prayers throughout the past 2 months. The missionaries were abducted by the 400 Mawozo gang, who said they were seeking ransom of $1 million for each hostage. The gang's leader said he was willing to kill the hostages. A Haitian police spokesman says the remaining 12 were found by authorities on a mountain called Mrna. He did not provide further details on the release. It is unknown whether any ransom was paid. Brain control technology. It may sound like science fiction, but the U.S. is accusing China of developing it for military use. NTD's Iris Dow has more.
The U.S. is blacklisting dozens of Chinese research institutes over human rights violations. The Commerce Department on Thursday said is adding to its export blacklist China's Academy of Military Medical Sciences and its 11 research institutes. It alleges they're using biotechnology to support Chinese military end uses and end users, to include purported brain control weaponry. While the agency did not elaborate on the described brain control weapons, a senior U.S. official told the Financial Times that Beijing is trying to use emerging biotechnologies to modernize its army. This includes research on gene editing, human performance enhancement, and brain-machine interfaces. Announcing the latest sanctions, Commerce Secretary Gina Raimondo says while biotechnology can save lives, unfortunately, the PRC is choosing to use these technologies to pursue control over its people and its repression of members of ethnic and religious minority groups. The Thursday move will bar American companies from selling components to these entities without a license. And this is only a part of a larger wave of sanctions coming at Beijing.
I think it would be shocking to all of us to know that even as I stand here now, there are products in this very chamber in the Senate that were touched by and made by the hands of slaves. It is a horrifying, horrifying human rights situation.
That was Senator Marco Rubio speaking Wednesday. The U.S. Senate is giving final approval to a bill that bans all imports from China's Xinjiang region, unless businesses can prove they were produced without forced labor. And the Treasury announced today that it is adding commercial drone maker DJI to its blacklist. This for helping the communist regime surveil Uyghurs and others in China. DJI is the world's largest commercial drone maker. Iris Tao, NTD News.
Japanese Prime Minister Fumio Kishida told Parliament on Thursday that he has no plans to attend the Winter Olympics in Beijing. He will decide later whether to send government representatives there. The comment from the U.S. ally came after several countries, including the U.S., the U.K., Australia, and Canada, announced diplomatic boycotts of the Beijing Olympics. That's to protest the communist regime's human rights abuses, including keeping Uyghurs in Xinjiang concentration camps. But another U.S. ally in the region, South Korea, says it won't join the diplomatic boycott. That's because they need China's help to counter North Korea's nuclear ambitions. And coming up, 2 vaccine mandates for kids 5 and older take effect in New York City. Another mandate for employees will take effect soon. pretty much everybody in the city will have to be vaccinated. And parents in California are outraged after learning teachers are promoting LGBTQ clubs without them knowing. Some vented at a meeting. Soon, virtually everyone in New York City will have to be vaccinated against COVID-19 as new mandates are taking effect. Many people are calling them the strictest measure in the nation. NTD's Ariane Pastar has more from the Big Apple.
New vaccine mandates took effect this week, affecting every child age 5 and up. By the end of this month, every private company will have to prove that their employees are vaccinated. Now, some criticize these strong measures, but Mayor de Blasio says we need them.
We're not going to end up in a situation that some parts of this country or in even the state where hospitals are overwhelmed. We can't let that happen in New York City. We need these strong measures now.
The vaccine mandate for indoor settings got expanded to kids 5 and up. You'll now have to show your kids' Vax card if you want to go to a restaurant, theater, museum, or most other indoor activities. And kids now also have to be vaccinated for some school activities. What do you think about all these mandates?
I love the vaccine mandate. I support the vaccine. We support science.
I think they're perfectly right. I think everybody should be vaccinated. I don't know what's wrong with people that are not vaccinated.
Also, a mask mandate has been implemented for indoor settings that don't have a vaccine mandate, like supermarkets. These measures affect everyone, tourists and locals. Then there's the mandate for private companies, which affects everyone working in the city. The mayor says the response to past mandates is proof that people won't lose their jobs because of this mandate.
So I do not expect people to be losing their jobs because we have a body of evidence that shows that people make the decision when it's really the moment of truth, they make the decision to get vaccinated.
The mandate for private companies will take effect just 1 week before de Blasio leaves office, but the policy will most likely stay. That's because the next mayor, Eric Adams, said he will keep in place the mandates set forth by de Blasio. Ariane Pastar, NTD News, New York.
California teachers were revealed to be promoting LGBTQ clubs at 2 conferences earlier this year. A former teacher shares his concerns. Here's NTD's Eileen Ang with more.
Parents criticized the Sprinkles Union School District in Salinas, California at a meeting on Wednesday. They spoke against teachers withholding information about their children.
How many mistakes are we going to take before my child almost lost her life? They didn't tell me that my child was suicidal. You allowed these teachers to open their classrooms teaching predatory information to a young child, a mindful child that doesn't even know how to comprehend it all.
The cry of distress comes after a leaked audio recording revealed 2 teachers mocking parents over their concerns about homosexual and transgender indoctrination at school during a California Teachers Association or CTA conference in October.
You took away my ability to parent my child, even before I had any knowledge. I didn't even get to show support. You asked for support, I didn't get a chance. You planted seeds, Ms. Caldera and Ms. Baraki, Mr. Baraki and you, Ms. Pagarin. Your job was to educate my child in math, science, English, etc. Do your job and let me do mine.
About 1 month earlier, on November 19th, the district released a statement saying they have suspended the controversial UBU club and set new guidelines for clubs and increased transparency.
I think that's inappropriate. To me, it's illegal, it's unethical, it's immoral, and it doesn't work very well developmentally for kids in the 4th and 5th grades.
Arata, a former teacher, said the teachers are violating a federal code that says parents are the primary educator and all other institutes are to support parents.
And the teachers involved, they're assuming parental responsibility. They're usurping parental responsibility. They're doing things with kids, indoctrinating them, that is not their business. The essential business of schools is the teaching and learning of knowledge and skills, not indoctrination, which is what this is.
Arata said schools are not notifying parents of their children attending these clubs. In February, another 2 elementary school teachers from the San Ramon Unified School District were allegedly caught proposing to hide an LGBTQ club called PRISM at another CTA conference. Fox News obtained a PowerPoint presentation titled Affirming LGBTQ and Identities in Elementary School, and 2 teachers talking about having the club during lunchtime so parents won't question why their child needs to go to school earlier or stay later.
Yes, that lunchtime is kind of that sweet spot where the kids don't need to come earlier or stay late, and kind of eliminates a little bit of that parent interaction.
Hong Nguyen, Director of Educational Equity in the San Ramon Valley Unified School District, informed NTD that the teacher's presentation at the conference was not part of their work and taken out of context. Hong encourages parents to reach out with any questions. Eileen Ang, NTD News, California.
A California Department of Education official recently resigned after news broke of his out-of-state residency. The official lives and works on the East Coast. NTD Cynthia Kai has the story.
California's first ever Deputy Superintendent of Equity, Daniel Lee, has resigned, a spokesperson from the Department of Education confirmed Wednesday. California's Department of Education first created the position in 2020. Lee was hired in July of that year. Lee's resignation comes after Politico first reported him as a Philadelphia resident and business owner last week. Lee is a psychologist and board member of the New Jersey Psychological Association. Assemblyman Kevin Kiley requested on Monday a review of the legality of Lee's employment as an out-of-state resident in response to the news. Lee's resume and LinkedIn page do not show any previous experience or connection to California. State Superintendent Tony Thurmond confirmed to Politico that Lee is a longtime friend and was hired when the pandemic opened the option of remote work practices. Lee has discussed issues such as mental health services in schools at California Assembly Committee hearings.
We have to change the climate and the space of schools. We're dealing with grief. We're dealing with the wildfires, and that's a whole different level of environmental trauma and grief that we have to think about supporting as we're rolling out these projects.
The position pays up to $180,000 in a taxpayer-funded salary and focuses on equity in counseling, social-emotional learning, among other student programs, according to the Department of Education. In a statement, the department said, following updated guidance from CalHR, Dr. Lee offered and we have accepted his resignation. We thank him for his work building and advancing CDE's educational equity and student mental health agendas. The Department of Education says it will begin searching for a candidate to fill Lee's position in the coming weeks. Cynthia Kai, NTD News, California.
The California DMV recently suspended a driverless testing permit for a Silicon Valley-based company. The suspension comes after a vehicle crash. NTD's David Lam has the story.
Pony.ai, an American-Chinese self-driving car venture founded in 2016, had its permit removed from the California Department of Motor Vehicles on Tuesday. According to a DMV report, this was after one of their autonomous vehicles crashed into a center divider in Fremont on October 28th. The Hyundai Kona was in autonomous mode and was performing a lane change to the left when it hit the divider and the traffic sign that was posted on the divider. The collision occurred in the morning when the weather was clear and the road was dry. There were no injuries or other cars involved. The car suffered moderate damage to the front and undercarriage. Pony.ai first got approved for driverless testing in May, and according to the company, it also has testing permits and R&D centers in several cities in China, including Beijing and Shenzhen. There are currently only 7 companies that have permits to do driverless testing in California, according to the DMV. Now, Pony.ai, along with 52 other permit holders, are allowed to do testing, but with a person in the driver's seat. David Lam, NTD News, California.
And coming up, a prestigious journal retracts an article about a study in China. There are concerns that the authors obtained DNA samples from Uyghurs without their consent. And the White House is unveiling a plan to address supply chain issues and get more truckers on the road. We'll take a look at the details when we return with NTD News.
Travel for K Original, Jola Namdo. The moment your 5 senses awaken. K Culture. The taste of Jola Namdo leads to the world. K Food. An exhilarating memory that I will cherish. There's no end to happiness. K Life. A great place to truly enjoy traveling. K Travel, Jola Namdo.
The ongoing supply chain crisis? Big tech and other woke companies giving billions to the liberal left? Where will you shop for Christmas? Go to Mammoth Nation. We created a safe place for patriots to spend their money for Christmas and beyond. Shop thousands of products from American and veteran-owned businesses. Shop to the right, give to the right. This is how we fight tyranny. Go to mammothnation.com right now and become a lifetime member today. Use promo code EPIC and save 30%.
It's just clear as day. The media, whether it's broadcast, cable, or print media, has become extremely biased. And I started looking online for alternative ways to get information. And I saw an ad for a free trial. And I looked at it and I said, Epoch Times. I mean, come on, this is end of days type of stuff. I mean, what are they going to be talking about here? And I said, well, it's a free trial. Let me dig in. Is it giving me both sides? Is it giving me an objective point of view here? I have looked for opportunities to see where they might be biased, and I don't find it. It has given me a level of trust in media that I didn't think I'd ever get back. I love the Epoch Times because it has renewed my faith in the idea that a reliable, responsible, non-biased source of information is available. And I can say that I love it because of that.
A scientific paper that assesses genetic variations among ethnic groups is retracted. It's over concerns that DNA samples used in the study were taken from Uyghurs without their consent. NTD's Tiffany Meyer has more.
A rare moment in the academic world. A highly regarded scientific journal has retracted a paper that has connections to human rights abuses in China. The study assesses different genetic variations among ethnic groups, including the Uyghurs and the Tibetans. The paper used DNA samples from nearly 38,000 men in China. The journal, called Human Genetics, retracted the paper over doubts about whether the Uyghurs and the Tibetans gave informed consent to their DNA samples being collected. Reports say that at least 9 of the paper's 30 co-authors have ties to Chinese police departments or police academies, and several others have ties to Chinese universities. Uyghurs have previously told the New York Times that the Chinese regime had called on them en masse to give blood samples, and they had no choice but to comply. Springer Nature publishes Human Genetics. Earlier this year, the journal retracted another paper for similar reasons. Newly revealed information suggests that Chinese telecom giant Huawei is working closer with Beijing than it admits. The Washington Post reviewed more than 100 Huawei slideshows the company has since deleted. Many of those slides are marked confidential. The slides show Huawei pitching how its technologies can help authorities surveil individuals. That includes identifying people by voice, monitoring political targets, and helping retailers track shoppers using facial recognition. Some of the surveillance capabilities showcased apply specifically to police or state agencies. The slide suggests that Huawei is working with the CCP in spying operations. One of the slides shows Huawei touting that its facial recognition technology has helped Xinjiang authorities capture people. The slide also boasts that its facial recognition system covers all transportation hubs in the capital of Xinjiang, and it has data on more than 50 million people with accurate alerts to Chinese police. The Washington Post contacted Huawei for comment about the slides. The telecom company said that it has no knowledge of the projects.
The number of import containers processed at the largest U.S. ports plummeted in November. Volumes at the ports of Los Angeles and Long Beach last month were down almost 10% from a year ago. But the number of ships waiting to unload cargo there is still growing. Officials say it's because retailers are sending smaller ships. It's less efficient for the ports to process many smaller vessels. That means processing has actually slowed down. About half the ships at the LA port last month were small ones. Marine terminal executives say they can't work as fast as they'd like because of shortages of trucking equipment and workers at inland warehouses. The ports are also particularly busy. Despite the November decline, officials say the ports are on track to handle record import volumes this year. And to help with the trucker shortage, the White House unveiled a plan today to recruit and train more drivers. NTD's Arlene Richards has more.
The Truck Action Plan is the product of the Biden administration's Supply Chain Disruptions Task Force. It aims to get more truck drivers on the road to address supply chain issues. On Thursday, Transportation Secretary Pete Buttigieg emphasized the important role trucking plays in the U.S. supply chain and economy.
A lot of the issue has to do with trucking capacity in all parts of the country. Remember, these truck drivers are the definition of essential workers. You can't do that job from home. You can't do it over Zoom. And we have absolutely depended on them to get everything from vaccine supplies to Christmas presents where they need to be.
The White House says 72% of goods in America are shipped by truck, and in most communities, trucks are the only form of delivery. The American Trucking Association says the industry is short 80,000 drivers, which is a record high. If nothing is done, it could grow to 160,000 by 2030.
So we're teaming up with the Department of Labor, taking a number of steps across the next 30, 60, 90 days and beyond. In the near term, a lot of it's about taking down some of the red tape that gets in the way of people who want a career in trucking, being able to get tested for a commercial driver's license, for example.
The plan will provide over $30 million to help states expedite commercial driver's licenses. Working closely with the private sector, the administration will launch a 90-day apprenticeship challenge to recruit as many employees as possible, offering paid on-the-job learning with registered apprenticeships. The plan also establishes a joint initiative between the Departments of Labor and Transportation to recruit new drivers.
That means listening to truckers and what they have to say. We'll be spending more time with them.
Additionally, the plan will reach out to military veterans looking to enter the trucking industry. Arlene Richards, NTD News.
Now in UK, Wembley, as several other stadiums nationwide, is turned into a vaccination center. The irony of this won't be lost on many soccer fans. It comes as Premier League teams cancel games because of a rise in COVID cases, and managers call for a circuit breaker pause in the league. Here's NTD's David English with more on this.
As the government announces stadiums nationwide will become vaccination centres, COVID plays havoc with the Premier League. Several games have been cancelled this week, including Thursday night's Leicester-Spurs clash. Brentford had their Tuesday game against Man United postponed after United's training ground saw an outbreak of positive cases. Manager Thomas Frank is calling for action to be taken before this weekend's next round of games.
We think that we should postpone the full round of Premier League games this weekend coming up. The COVID cases are going through the roof in all the Premier League clubs.
The Premier League has reverted to emergency measures, including daily testing. New rules came into place this week. Supporters will be denied entrance without a COVID pass or negative test result. Spot checks will take place outside grounds. Football fans at Palace's game against Southampton on Wednesday had mixed views on the new restrictions.
I think it's good for general health, otherwise there wouldn't be any games at all eventually, and we'd eventually have to watch it at home, and that's maybe not as good as coming into the ground.
It's got to be done, isn't it, at the moment, to be honest with you, the way things are and the way it's spiking at the moment. So, yeah, I'll go along with it,
The diversionary tactics by the government, it's just trying to sort of look over here while we're doing different things over there,
In last night's press conference with the Prime Minister, Dr. Kanani urged football fans, if you're going to a stadium this weekend, make it one where you can get your booster jab, rather than for a match. But many football fans will be hoping to see their teams on the pitch this weekend. David English, NTD News.
And France announces that because of surging COVID-19 cases in Britain, only designated categories of people will be allowed to travel between the two countries. Anyone arriving from Britain will have to self-isolate because the Omicron variant is spreading rapidly in the UK. Here's NTD's Lily Jo.
Travellers from Britain are looking at new restrictions when travelling to France. As the Omicron variant is sweeping its way across the UK, Britons arriving in France will have to self-isolate for 7 days. Travellers will also need to provide a negative COVID test on arrival, taken in the last 24 hours. Isolation will be lifted after 48 hours if a test conducted in France is negative. Until now, the restrictions were applied only to non-vaccinated travelers from Britain. Under the new rules, people are only allowed to travel from Britain to France if they are a French citizen or foreign permanent resident in France. Those carrying out essential work or are in transit for less than 24 hours are also exempt from the rules. A UK travel association described the French travel restrictions as a hammer blow to the winter travel industry. UK Health Minister Gillian Keegan said she has had to cancel a skiing trip to France over Christmas due to the rising threat of Omicron. She told BBC Radio 4, "Every government is dealing with Omicron. Every government has to make their decisions and has their response to it. It is obviously going to alter people's plans, which is very unfortunate." The new rules take effect after midnight on Friday night. Lily Zhou, NTD News.
And coming up, a new Japanese inflatable scooter is helping riders get around Tokyo. Using an air pump, it takes about 2 minutes to inflate the device into a portable ride. And a 5-star hotel in New York City is thriving. What are they doing that other hotels are not? NTD News has the exclusive interview when we return.
Hello, I'm Mike Lindell, the CEO of MyPillow. Cancel culture has not only affected myself and MyPillow, but millions of you out there. My employees and I want to personally thank each and every one of you for all of your support. At MyPillow, we not only have pillows, but we have hundreds of products, including my new slippers, bathrobes, sleepwear, and my new beds. We're offering the best gifts ever for the best prices ever. For example, we have this exclusive offer on the standard size MyPillows, regularly $69.98, now only $19.98 with your promo code. We also have the queen size MyPillows, regularly $79.98, now only $24.98 with your promo code. And we have the king size, regularly $89.98, now only $29.98 with your promo code. So go to mypillow.com now and use the promo code on your screen or call the 1-800 number below to receive this exclusive offer.
The pandemic hit the hotel industry hard, but one luxury 5-star hotel in New York City is thriving again. NTD's Phil Zhou takes us to the Langham to see what's behind its success.
We're here in Midtown Manhattan, where to my right is the Empire State Building, to my left is Rockefeller Center. No better place for the holidays. Today we visit one of the most exclusive hotels in New York City, the Langham, right here on 5th Avenue. Let's get started. Part of a skyscraper 60 stories high, the 5-star hotel remained open throughout the pandemic when most hotels decided to shut down. Why did they do it?
It wasn't a question of what could we make. It wasn't profitable, but we reduced the loss, which was significant, obviously.
And that decision paid off. Today, the Langham, New York remains open at full capacity, with many staff returning. General Manager Richard Boussier says one of the secrets is being truthful and sincere to your workers.
Wanting to be able to put hand on heart to you as a colleague that we were rehiring and saying, you know, we can pretty much guarantee you 40 hours of work a week.
And by having a good heart comes good rewards. Today, all 200 plus rooms at the Langham are sold out.
It's pent-up demand for New York, to be very honest. Radio City Music Hall, Christmas Spectacular back this year, which is fantastic. Broadway is open.
Sports and entertainment is back too. As NTD News was filming, the entire Golden State Warriors team started checking out of the hotel. That's after their game with the New York Knicks a few days ago. Security was out and about, fans lining up outside, packing the streets. Boussier says business has been so good at the Langham, the company plans to open 3 to 4 more hotels in the next couple of years. Phil Zhou, NTD News, New York.
And oyster reefs are a cornerstone of coastal ecosystems. Each oyster can filter some 25 to 50 gallons of water a day. But not only that, the reefs they form provide habitat for hundreds of species. But as their numbers plummet, volunteers are now raising oysters along the U.S. coasts. That's to help restore depleted reefs. Let's take a look.
Volunteers along the Mississippi Gulf Coast are raising oysters to help protect coastal ecosystems. Most of them grow in wire cages hanging from the docks, some tied to open floats. Oyster larvae or spat attach themselves to larger oysters, forming reefs that provide habitat for more than 300 different species.
So it forms these clumps in the garden. We take the oyster clumps from the gardens, turn them over to DMR, and they plant them on other reefs, okay? So what that does is it creates all these different cracks and crevices. You can see here, there's tons of different places for fish to hide.
Between the 1950s and the 1990s, oyster populations in the United States dropped by 68% due to overfishing, pollution, and other problems. The Mississippi-Alabama Sea Grants Gardening Program started in 2001 as a master's thesis research. Now 2 schools in Mississippi incorporate the gardens in their marine science curriculum.
When they get out there, they have to dunk the baskets, try to get as much sediment off of them as possible, open the baskets up, check for predators, remove predators, look for spat that's still alive, measure the spats, record that data.
Commercial farmers grow oysters near the surface of the water. There they mature much faster with more plankton and less predators. Oyster gardening uses the same techniques, but not for the same end.
The habitats they create, and they're more than just things to just eat. They're things that help our, the ecosystem.
Today there are more than 1,000 oyster gardens dotting the shores of Maryland, Virginia, Mississippi, and Alabama. Gardeners have added at least 15 million oysters in Maryland and 1 million in Virginia. The goal is set to reach 10 billion by 2025.
A new Japanese inflatable scooter is designed to help riders get around Tokyo, and it can fit into a backpack. NTD's Andrew Thomas has the details.
If you need to take a short trip somewhere, but don't have access to a car or public transportation, Japan's Poimo may be your solution. Poimo stands for Portable Inflatable Mobility.
People would imagine balloons to be soft, but this one is like a basketball. Even if people ride on it, it's steady as a rock and sturdy.
The inflatable electric scooter was developed by researchers from Tokyo University as a mobility solution.
I first thought about developing a mobility device that can bridge the last 1 mile, 1.6 kilometers, or distance between a train station and a workplace, where there's some distance but no public transportation.
The scooter runs on an electric motor and can fit easily into a medium-sized backpack in its deflated form.
Safety and operability of vehicles take time to be developed, so to merchandise this scooter as a product, we need to guarantee that it can be ridden safely.
Using an air pump, it takes about 2 minutes to inflate the device into a portable ride. With a single battery charge, the 22-pound scooter can run up to 90 minutes at about 9 miles per hour.
As you can see, Poimo can be built into different shapes. With this, I hope we can make it in the shape each person wants. For example, a shape that is suitable for a person's height so that we can offer the most suitable mobility device for that person.
The research team has also developed a software which allows users to customize the shape of the vehicle, such as a sofa or wheelchair. Andrew Thomas, NTD News.
A large gemstone in Sri Lanka is winning awards from the country's Gem and Jewelry Authority. It's said to be the largest natural blue sapphire ever recorded. NTD's Andrew Thomas takes a look.
This large gem was found in Sri Lanka 3 months ago, but it's just being unveiled to the public now, at the home of one of the partners of the gem pit.
I think this may be the world's largest corundum pebble. So there's a good value because of this size.
The natural corundum blue sapphire is said to be the largest ever recorded in the world, weighing in at 683 pounds. Almost 90% of all corundum stones found in the world are from Sri Lanka, renowned for centuries for its unique gemstones. The pebble has been named Queen of Asia. Previously, there was a large star sapphire cluster found weighing over 1,000 pounds. Andrew Thomas, NTD News.
The Museum of the Home in London has reopened and takes visitors through the ages with their Christmas Past exhibition. It looks at how homes in the UK would have been decorated during the festive season in centuries gone by. NTD's Neil Woodrow tells us more.
A festive display welcomes visitors at the newly reopened Museum of the Home in London.
We've been running Christmas Past at Museum of the Home now for nearly 30 years, but this year it looks a little bit different. So it's part of our winter festival that looks at the many different celebrations during winter from a range of cultures and religions, things like Diwali and Hanukkah and New Year.
Mead says Christmas looked very different in different time periods.
So in the 1600s, it's this really raucous celebration. The homes are decorated with all this greenery. It's a real time of merriment. And then when you get into the later years in the 1700s, we've actually just got over Christmas being cancelled. And when Christmas is reintroduced, it's a much more quiet affair, it's much more subdued. And then we get to the Victorian room, and this is where we see a real revival of Christmas. And the Victorians actually gave us many of the Christmas traditions that we recognise today, such as the Christmas card, the Christmas tree they made popular, and also during the Victorian era is where we see the real arrival of this figure of Father Christmas.
But Christmas during World War I was a much more subdued affair.
You know, many people had loved ones away from home, you know, missing them, going through a really hard time. But we do still see some traditions that continue. So, for example, the Christmas tree. And we also see this bringing in of greenery, which is something that dates back to the 1600s, and it signifies everlasting life, and holly, especially fertility with the red berries.
Christmas in the 1930s saw the arrival of the artificial Christmas tree, as well as paper chains and lanterns. One visitor says he relates to the stories told through the decorations.
I just thought it was super interesting because you just get an insight of how people used to live, how they were connected to their roots, their background, and how then that connected to their lives here in England.
Christmas Past at the Museum of the Home runs until the 9th of January. Neil Woodrow, NTD News.
And that's all for today's news. Thanks for tuning in. See you tomorrow.
Thanks for watching us on YouTube. Did you know YouTube only keeps selective videos on its platform? So if you want to make sure you get the full picture, just subscribe to our newsletter. Go to newsletter.ntd.com and sign up. It's free.